Welcome to part 9 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger, my story about surviving an attempted unaliving and the cover up that ensued. My story involves a lot of A-list celebrities, politicians, things like that. So today I'm going to be covering more of day 4 of the criminal trial, and I'll just be talking about one person's testimony who was the manager at the Nice Guy. Before I even mention anything, he's a really great person and he told the truth on the stand. So he gets on the stand, and by the way, everything I'm going to tell you, I have to be very clear. This is what the transcript, the official legal transcript of the criminal trial, this is what the transcript says. Okay, there's a difference between what it says and what happened for this part. Okay, so the transcript says that the manager comes out and he sees a man on the ground just getting wailed on by another man. So he tries to pull that man off multiple times, and then Sean Driz, he identified, Sean Driz came up behind him, threatened to unalive him, and then hit him in the back of the head, and then he was assaulted, and he had injuries from trying to help the man on the ground. So then Shapiro tried to say that the defendants were actually very injured too, and he produced some photos, which I will post after this post, which is just, ugh. But they have like Band-Aids, couple Band-Aids, and they're making faces like, oh, woe is me, like, and it, in my opinion, looks like a very, very amateur makeup artist job of depicting like bruises and stuff. I'll post them. And he said, to the manager, do these injuries look familiar to you? And the manager said, no, sir, they don't look like what I saw. And when he showed him the injuries of me, he was like, yeah, she had that tracks. Like, she had a softball-sized lump on her head when I saw her that night. So now let's skip ahead. So that was 2016. He testified. We didn't know about this until a couple years later, until I bought the transcripts and read what everybody said. And I was like, oh, okay, so this stranger, the manager, came out and testified. That was really cool of him. I wonder who he saw, if that was one of the other two plaintiffs, the men. So now let's move forward to early 2020, 4 years after the trial. I get a DM, and it's from the manager, and he says, hey, I've been seeing your stuff you've been posting about what happened all over IG. I just came across your page. I'd always wondered what happened to you. I hope you're okay. I was there that night, and if you have any questions about it, I'd be willing to answer them. I hope I'm not triggering you. It was a very nice message. And so I responded, yeah, like, I'd absolutely like to talk to you and hear from you. But I didn't want to do it over the phone. I didn't want to call him because I was worried I was getting catfished, or maybe somebody paid him to enter my life down the road and try to get information or something, because things like that had been happening. I haven't gotten there yet. But so I figured if he was going to lie to me, it better be to my face, where I can look in his eyes and I can call him out immediately, because I would know. So I asked him, well, let's meet for lunch. And he said, okay. So we met for lunch. I drove like an hour and a half, 2 hours away to wherever he lived. And we met for lunch at this really nice place by the ocean. It was very calming. And the second he walked in the door and sat down at the table, I just sensed that he wasn't full of BS. I could sense kindness about him. And the weird thing is for the hour that we sat there eating food and talking, we never talked about the case, the trial, nothing. It was more like, how are you since then? What's your life like? Like, oh, you have a wife and kids, and like, okay. And like, we're chatting about all this stuff and just kind of getting to know each other in like a gentle way, I guess you could say. And the check comes, and we're getting up to leave. We still hadn't talked about what I drove an hour and a half to talk about. And I remember going to hug him. And as I was pulling away, I said, hey, before I go, if you could just tell me in your own words what you remember from that night, that would be great. I was like, I already know what you said on the stand. I've got it memorized in my head. But I just want to hear it out of your mouth. So he's like, okay. So he says, I came out of the bar, and that's when I saw a woman on the ground, and she was being assaulted by a man. And I tried to pull him off of her, and he was like, it's just, he said he worked in the bar industry for years, and it just hits you different when it's a woman being assaulted by a man. And he, described the whole attack that he witnessed and the reason why he came and testified a year later at a trial for complete strangers, because he was like, it's just different when a man is beating an unconscious woman, you know? Like, I had to testify. I've had things happen in my life when people didn't stand up for me, and I wanted to do the right thing. So, and so I remember giving him a hug, and my response was like, okay, thanks. Wow. And it hadn't hit me yet what I had just heard, and I get in my car, and I'm driving up the 405 North, and about 10 minutes later, driving, it hit me what I had just heard, the information that I had just received, and I had to pull my car off to the side of the road and just break down on the side of the 405 for like 15 minutes, just pounding my steering wheel, yelling. I was angry, I was relieved, I was feeling betrayed for so many reasons. So I immediately text him, I need tissue. I immediately texted him, hey, the transcript says that you saw a man getting assaulted. It never said you saw a woman being assaulted. Are you sure you said that? And I sent him screenshots of his testimony immediately. Like, I raced home, sent him screenshots of his testimony. I said, you need to look that over. Like, what do you think? And his response back, he texted me, I've always said he said, I've always said I saw a man beating up a woman. And I don't or would ever use the word disadvantage, like in the transcripts. And then he says, I don't recall ever saying another person. It was always a woman. So how much time do I have? Okay, I'm going to read you just like a half a page of his testimony, like the meat of it, of what's in the transcript, the illegally altered criminal trial transcript. So this is between him and an attorney. I think it was Shapiro. And so this is what he says in the transcript. It says, one person on top of the other punching away. Shapiro, the person on the ground, did you recognize that person? Manager, I didn't recognize the person. I didn't take time to guess who it was. I just saw somebody on the ground and somebody at a disadvantage. Who calls a woman being... Okay. Shapiro, did you see the person standing over him? I did see the person. Did you recognize that person? No. That person standing over the other person on the ground, is that person here in court today? No, sir. What did you see happen next? When he said no, sir, we think that maybe he was referring to possibly William Jolson, the fourth man in the civil trial. So anyways, the manager then says, I reacted at that point. Like I said, I saw somebody at a disadvantage. Initially, the person that was standing over, I kind of pushed them out of the way. I attempted to get the person that was on top of the other person. I tried, this is a huge lesson in pronouns. So for some reason, a top-notch, famous, long-time practicing criminal defense attorney, they would never say, the person who is on the person and the person on the person, they would never do that. They always make you clarify. So what you're saying, sir, is the man and the woman, and this and then that, plaintiff number one, defendant number two. This has been illegally altered. And another time, a few pages down in his testimony, they changed it again, where he says, the manager says, I pulled him off of a victim on the ground. So then I was just a victim. So I'm they, I'm them, I'm person, I am person at the disadvantage, person on the ground, somebody at a disadvantage. I'm going to upload screenshots of all this right after. Somebody went as far as to change all of the pronouns so that the star witness to my attempted unaliving would be taken off the table, so that instead of the conviction being attempted unaliving, the convictions were then all lowered to GBI felony assault, which is the lowest one below attempted unaliving. GBI means great bodily injury. So that's the reason why they don't call it attempted unaliving in all of this, but I'm always going to refer to it to that, because if the defendants want to sue me for calling it the wrong thing, they can. Bring it. You know, the discovery would be breathtaking, because this is part of the discovery. So, okay, I got through that. Yeah, I reached out to the stenographer, and she also told me that the audio files had been stolen and destroyed, because I wanted to listen to those to compare them to the altered transcript. So that's that. I wonder who has the power and the soullessness to do something like that. You know, who could it be? Don't say their name.